Welcome back to the Football Psych YouTube channel, where today we're going to be talking about money and wages. Now, the question really I'm going to be answering is, do players still care? Do players still care, bearing in mind how much money they're earning? So let's try and answer that. So I think firstly, we've got to consider how important it is nowadays for players to promote the right message about wanting to play and not just coming in for big money and being that guy that sits on the bench and picks up 100 grand a week. They've got to really show, not just on social media, but in general, their intent to play. They're applying themselves in training. You know, they really show a love for the club and something fans can connect with, instead of just coming in, you know, being maybe a foreign player, not really knowing the language, not making the effort, sitting on the bench, not really getting their game time, and ultimately just being a news headline of a player that is really not bothered about playing whatsoever. So let's talk some facts and figures, and strap yourself in. Some of these are kind of alarming. So on average, a Premier League footballer earns £60,000 a week, meaning every month they're bringing in £240,000, which results in over a £2.8 million annual salary. And that's just wages alone. That is just their base salary. That's not sponsorship deals, brand deals, or clauses in their contract that means they're going to earn any more. So in light of those astonishing numbers, how hard really is it for a player not just to be a product of their value? I think we scrutinise their performance enough, as mentioned in previous videos, but we also look and delve too deep into the numbers, into exactly what they're earning and the breakdown of their money. Whereas, yes, it is relevant because money runs football and everyone's interested in the numbers side of the game. But actually, do we focus on that too much? And does that mount pressure or unnecessary pressure on players and ultimately cause them to flop? How much does this distract the fans from what they're doing on the pitch? Or actually, when they do something good on the pitch, well, yeah, they should be doing that because they're on 50 grand a week. Well, that shouldn't be the attitude, really, should it? We shouldn't delve too deep into the numbers. Yes, they're there, I'll be aware of them, but let's just view them as a football player instead of a product. Just because they're earning more money doesn't mean they should be playing better every week. There's a lot to consider. There's a lot going on beyond the pitch. I think it's important just to tone it down a bit and be a bit more level-headed and look at them as an individual and not just an athlete. At the end of the day, they didn't put the price tag on their own head. They didn't ask to be sold for £70 million. I know they're fully aware they exist within the chaos of football and the money-driven nature of football, but they didn't ask to be sold for that money. So maybe let's not be too quick to judge them and maybe let them settle in and find their feet first. How many times have we seen a player come in for big money at a big club and it just not work out? They never really hit the ground running, they never get going, they never find their feet. Well, this is a technical term in the industry called collapse, and it's referred to as individual or collective collapse. So individual relating to one single player, or collective, the team itself. And it can happen in both senses, but today we're going to focus on individual collapse. And basically that's when there's no explanation, but a player was in really good form, maybe elsewhere or at the same club, and suddenly there's a massive nosedive in performance. Now, a player that this is really evident in is Kepa Arrizabalaga, the most expensive keeper in the history of football, and ultimately just collapsed. His performances dropped off, his confidence was shot to pieces, and you're seeing one of the most promising young goalkeepers in Europe become the Premier League's worst. Or how about Fernando Torres, two Chelsea examples I know, brought in for £50 million in 2012. What happened? Is it just a freak occurring? Does it happen by chance, the fact they just stop performing to the levels they were previously at? Or actually, is there a deeper meaning behind it? Are the internal and external pressures acting upon them in the football world? You know, the pressure they put on themselves, confidence issues, their self-expectation and levels they want to meet, plus the fan base getting on top of them, that money always in the media, £80 million, £90 million, he's on 300 grand a week, why is he not playing to them levels? That can really mount up on a player and ultimately just form them to cave in, to collapse. I think money prevents us from being fair and level-headed when looking at football players in general. I think it almost creates a lens over our eyes and we can't see past what they're brought in for, what they're on a week. And I think that's really damaging, not just to them players and the way they're viewed and perceived, really in the footballing world, but us as fans, we don't really ever appreciate what they're doing on the pitch or the athlete they are, because this price tag's always looming over their head. But I think it goes the other way as well. Not just talking about the money that they earn, but actually what they do with the money. Now, I think footballers are seen as the bad guys. They're always expected to be the first to fork out for charity or good causes, or to jump in at the last minute and save the day. And yes, they earn a lot of money and they have a responsibility, but actually we don't really talk about the community work they do enough, the outreach programs that they engage in, the money they pump into their local communities or where they're brought up, and the impact they're having on normally young people's lives, and almost acting as a catalyst for change. But that's not talked about because that doesn't sell headlines. So let's attack them for the things they do. You had Marcus Rashford recently in the headlines again, but not necessarily for the right reasons. Journalists jumping on him because he's buying property with the money that he's earning, and them saying, oh, why aren't you putting it into the community or making a change like you're banging on about? I think he's done enough, first of all, but actually he's just looking out for himself. Football is a very short career. You're lucky if you make it a 15-year career. Most players only 10, depending on when you come into the professional game. And it really just comes down to the jealousy and bitterness. I think people envy footballers. People envy the lives they lead. And the average person doesn't like the fact that they're earning all this money and likes to attack them for any way they can. But actually, I think they deserve a break. Yes, the money they earn is ridiculous and it shouldn't be that way, but that's football. That's not their fault. That's the game they entered into, the job they just happen to be skilled at. So maybe it's important for us to think about, how would we feel in their position, earning all that money, and the expectation to not just do well and perform, but actually go out and be the superhero in the community and be the catalyst for change all the time. And it must be quite tiring, they live full-on lives. I'm not saying they're above anyone and have it really difficult in the grand scheme of things, but they are really jumped upon and attacked very easily on an everyday basis, not just in the media. So let's think about their performance, not their performance through the lens of the money or the value that they have, just their performance. And it is a factor, yes, and we should be mindful of it, but let's not judge them too soon, and let's not be too critical because of the money they've come into out of no fault of their own. So that's going to be it for this video. Please let me know down in the comments what topic you want me to cover next. The most liked comment I will do a video on, so ask away, get discussing in there, and hopefully a good one comes up and we can talk about it next time. Thanks everyone.
Been crying so much to the poltergeist, trying to hold on to love, but it's frozen.